This is New Hampshire, and we all pride ourselves on being able to tough out some cold weather now and then. But with the wind chill forecasts really predicted to go below negative 40 degrees in terms of wind chill, virtually all across the state, what we're likely to encounter over the next 36 to 48 hours is going to be really unprecedented. It really is something that we're taking extremely seriously statewide. These temperatures can truly become life-threatening in a very short amount of time. At negative 30 degrees, hypothermia can set in just 10 minutes, and we know it's going to be even colder than that across the entire state. The good news is that New Hampshire does stand ready. We have multiple agencies, including the Department of Safety, the folks at the Department of Health and Human Services that have been coordinating with municipalities and local service providers to be sure that we are prepared. The additional $5 million that we allocated last year to support emergency shelters across New Hampshire is being used right now to help ensure that those resources are available. Should you or your family or your neighbor find yourself in need of some sort of temporary warming or sheltering situation, we encourage everyone to call 211 or they can go online to dhhs.nh.gov to find out where the 18 additional emergency shelters are located across the state. We also have 8 cold weather responding organizations, again, statewide, that stand ready to provide resources and services to whoever may be in need. Of course, we work hand in glove with our cities and towns to coordinate as much of the sheltering information as possible. After this press conference, our teams actually will be jumping on a direct call with all of the local emergency coordinators across the state to make sure they understand what resources are available, the operational times for the EOC, how to contact the state if the need does arise. Want to make sure folks understand we're also working with the electrical providers. With these high winds could come power outages, and getting that power on, restoring heat to citizens as fast as possible is going to be absolutely critical. And so we'll be working with all the different utilities across the state to make sure that they stand ready to respond as rapidly as possible. I want to, again, encourage folks, you've heard the message before, be a good neighbor. Check in on your family members, check in on folks that might be elderly, check in on folks that might have some additional needs or resources, especially during this it's a tight window, but it's going to get so extreme so fast. We don't want anybody to be taken by surprise. And I think from that community level, live free or die spirit, making sure that we're all checking on each other is going to be a really important resource and tool in making sure that we all come through safely. Donations. Food pantries are looking for donations, whether they be clothing or food or sleeping bags or tents or warm coats. Just a strong reminder. This might not be the beginning of the winter season, but we are right in the middle of it, and anything that folks can or would be willing to donate, even over the next 24 hours, can all be utilized, I think, very, very well. Outdoor activities. We have Jay's here from the Mount Washington Observatory, and he's going to talk a little bit about what the observatory is seeing. It's one of the premier weather stations on the planet, and we're so grateful and fortunate to have a resource like that. But when it comes to outdoor activities, there's virtually nothing that folks shouldn't be very wary of. It's not just hiking in the Presidential Range in the winter. It's not just going for an extreme hike or an extreme activity. Even just being outside for 10 to 20 to 30 minutes can become very dangerous very fast in this 36 to 48 hour period. So we really want to encourage everyone to curtail their outdoor activities as much as possible. Be smart, be safe, and be prepared more than anything else. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Emergency Services, Rob Buxton.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor Sununu. Good morning. I'm Robert Buxton. I have the privilege of being the Department of Safety's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management's Director. As extreme cold temperatures move across New Hampshire on Friday, it's important that residents and visitors be prepared. Please stay informed, sign up for New Hampshire alerts, and monitor your local weather stations. Make sure your family has an emergency plan. Make sure you have a winter emergency kit that has approximately 3 days worth of supplies in it, including blankets, flashlight, and extra batteries. If you must go outside, please make sure that you're clothing yourself in layers, loose-fitting layers, so that you have that extra airspace to help insulate you. Know the signs of frostbite, prickly fingers, numbness, discoloration. Please make sure you take those preventative measures. Know the signs of hypothermia. If you're shivering, slurred speech, or drowsiness, make sure you're dialing 911 and you get checked out. If you're considering safety of others and pets, please make sure you're checking on your neighbor, as the governor mentioned. If you have concern, please notify your local law enforcement to do a welfare check. Or if you feel they're in danger, please dial 911 directly. New Hampshire residents can find more information on readynewhampshire.gov. Local communities may be opening up local warming shelters this weekend. We're encouraging all of them to list that information in WebEOC. This is the opportunity for the state to be able to track that information and get it out to our local communities through 211, so we can send you to the nearest warming shelter for you. Our agency is very thankful the support of the Department of Transportation, the Division of Emergency Services and Communications, and you'll note that we've put an extended messaging up Route 93 into the White Mountains to encourage our hiking community to try to curb their activities through the weekend as we see these extreme temperatures. This is a teamwork approach to make sure we get the information out to those communities and make sure we're safe throughout the weekend. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jay Broccolo. I am the Director of Weather Operations here at the Mount Washington Observatory, and I'd like to thank the Governor, essentially the whole state and everyone here for putting this together. We take safety really seriously in the higher summits, and this weekend's forecast is looking pretty gnarly, even for our standards. There's a cold front that will come through later this evening. That will bring a little bit of snow, but heading into Friday morning, temperatures will be dropping 20 to 30, possibly 40 degrees into Saturday night. And with winds at 70, 80, 90, potentially over 100 miles per hour as it builds into Friday night and early Saturday morning, there could be serious amounts of blowing snow, poor visibility, and just a very bad situation above tree line. The reason why this is such a noteworthy to us is because it takes a very small mistake to then pass a cascade of poor decision making and failures above tree line, which can ultimately lead to death. It has happened many times before above tree line, but it can really only take you taking a glove off, and then within a minute your fingers are almost unable to move because your body has pulled the blood away from your fingers. Even goggles, breathing outside can freeze over your goggles so that you can't see. Having multiple pairs of goggles may not even help you. So it's a really dire situation. None of the buildings in the higher alpines are open. They are all closed. They are not there for respite. They are there for people to run the weather observations and keep the buildings in operation. There's a very limited staff up there that cannot help you. Even rescue services, it will be very difficult for them all to come out Saturday night. So if you get caught in above the tree line, it'll be a long time before rescue crews get to you. So we really just want that to be the focus. Really experienced people. It's going to be a tough weekend. So please, everyone, just read the weather forecast from the National Weather Service, from the Mount Washington Observatory, or any weather source. Please be informed. That's what we ask. Thank you.
Great. With that, let me just make sure. Chris, did you want to jump in? No? Okay. Well, we do have some folks from HHS here as well, if there are questions in terms of the resources and programs that are available across the state. We're tough and we're resilient about our weather, but that comes because we're always prepared. And we just want folks to really appreciate the intensity of the weather we're going to get so we can be prepared and come through it on the other side safely and smart. With that, we can open up for questions. Oh.
Electric, is that on the top of your list of concerns, loss of power? And do you feel confident, given the past experiences that we've had with these prolonged electric outages, that we've got resources to handle this in a short period of time?
Yeah, so making sure that we can restore electricity quickly is obviously at the one of the top issues that we deal with. The good news is that the days of 2008, 9, and 10, where power could be out for weeks and weeks at a time, that has been much curtailed. We still can have days of power outages, especially in some of our rural areas, but there has been over $1 billion invested into the resiliency of our system. So even when power outages are there, I think that the utilities have been very smart about drawing in a lot of the crews ahead of time, pre-staging them. But with the winds, it's not just the cold, but the winds that will come, we do anticipate power outages across the state.
Can you just talk about the role of the EOC and support that will be provided if other towns need it? Yeah, so thank you for that question. So the state EOC has an operational plan that will look at a 24-hour basis where we have a duty officer that monitors the activities from power outages to shelters to any support that the local communities may need through their EOC. So that practice is in place today, and that is something we practice 365 days a year. So that is there for our local municipalities and our partners.
What steps are the state taking to reach folks who may be experiencing homelessness out of their storm?
Sure. So again, we have a variety of, we have folks on the ground, and I'm going to have Chris come up and talk a little bit about this directly. We have folks on the ground all across the state, not just Manchester or just Nashua, but really all across the state, identifying where pockets of the most vulnerable population of the homeless may be, making sure that the local communities know where these 18 different shelters, support services will be, understanding the roles of the additional 8 organizations that will provide cold weather resources to the state. So it's all about communication and information on the ground. Chris, do you want to jump in a little?
Hi, Chris Santinello. Thank you for that question. We regularly meet with our shelters, our outreach providers, also our new cold weather solutions. Many of those become activated when we have severe weather, and they work really closely with the regional teams that are working with outreach. They all have plans for people. Many of them have transportation to pick people up, allow them to bring their belongings with them. So again, we stay in contact with all of the teams that are out there daily, multiple times a week, to really make sure that we're working to meet the needs of our citizens.
I'm going to throw one more thing in there, just because it's impressive. I was talking to some of the coordinators that are on the ground, both the private groups that the state brings in, as well as some of the folks that work directly for the city, specifically Nashua and Manchester. I'm impressed with how well they know some of these folks within the homeless community on a first-name basis. And they try to keep very good track of where they are, where they're located, where their tents are. So I'm always quite impressed at the local level with the specificity that they understand the homeless community. So that gave me a lot of confidence that we know pretty much where they are, we know who they are, and I know they're doing a lot of that that outreach today, tomorrow, to make sure that everyone understands the seriousness of the situation coming in. The folks on the ground do a phenomenal job. They really do. Sorry.
I know the New Hampshire National Guard has been mobilized and other public health emergencies in the past. Have you contemplated that for this particular?
We haven't contemplated that. Well, I should say I have not activated the New Hampshire National Guard for this, but they do stand ready. We've been in touch with General Michaelitis. He works hand in glove with our folks at Emergency Services. Right now, we think we're in pretty good shape. But if they need to be called up, Lord knows there's no one better than the New Hampshire National Guard to step in on a moment's notice. But they know they could be on call if a situation were to arise. But we feel fairly confident with the system we have in place. If we can get that communication, as Rob said, making sure the locals are putting their information into the state system so it goes out on a broad basis. If folks have any questions of additional services that may be provided on a local basis, please feel free to contact whether it's your fire department, police department, your local town officials, because every once in a while towns will do things on their own, which is great. But if you have any questions on opportunities like that, we encourage folks to reach out. But again, they can always come to our website, whether it's dhhs.nh.gov, call 211. The shelters and services are provided, and the locations of them.
And then in terms of people experiencing homelessness, I know lots of shelters are at capacity across parts of New Hampshire. Are there any other solutions, like have you contemplated putting people into hotels, or do you anticipate any extra efforts needed?
No, do you want to jump with that? Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, many shelters are at capacity, but we work with them to figure out ways during these extreme weathers to expand that capacity. In addition to that, like the governor mentioned, we have 8 additional cold weather shelters and solutions across all counties. We have 8 contracts, but it covers each county. And that's really meant for these cold weather days to open up their doors to those who cannot be in a shelter, who are experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So those are really opening up for those individuals.
Do you have a figure on how many beds are actually available in the state right now? Number?
Do you? Yeah.
A ballpark. So emergency shelter beds, a ballpark is about 750. And then with the cold weather solutions, the ballpark is about 350. Some of those are actual structures, but then in other parts of the state where they may not have a structure, they have worked out arrangements with local hotels. And so that capacity is in addition to the 350.
Governor, have you considered declaring an emergency, and why or why not?
Well, in terms of a state of emergency, if we needed to allocate additional funding and resources, that would be the primary purpose of declaring a state of emergency. At this point, the funding and resources are there. The teams are out in the field. The community connections are there. So at this time, there's no need to call for that.
Are there any parts of the state that are more vulnerable than others, maybe like the seacoast or the mountain areas?
Well, I would say this. This is going to be a cold weather crisis from Seabrook to Colebrook, right? So let's understand that no one is going to be immune, I think, from what's coming down. My bigger concern, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, is some of the smaller and more rural towns where folks may be in a cold weather condition and maybe they live a half mile off of the road. Some of the larger cities will just naturally not just have more resources, but individuals are in closer proximity. So you want to make sure that that time delay, you don't want to create a system where it takes hours and hours to get somebody help. And traditionally in some of our more rural communities, that time delay can be extended. So that's why we're making sure that what we're doing isn't just a Nashua, Manchester, Concord, Southeast tier. It's really a statewide, hopefully, solution and opportunity for folks. So I think my concern would be more obviously in the higher elevations if folks were to partake in outdoor activities, which again, we strongly encourage everyone to curtail this weekend. Not a bad weekend just to take the weekend off. But aside from that, even in some of those smaller rural towns, we want to make sure that they have just as much connectivity and opportunity to keep themselves safe and warm in a crisis situation. If the power were to go out, if the heating system were to fail for some reason, those are the ones that we want to make sure that we can respond to the fastest. Do you want to? No. Okay, great. You don't want to add anything?
There's one big public event that's happening outdoors. It's the Icon Hockey Classic in Meredith.
Right.
Have you been in communication with them about whether they should consider moving it to another day?
Yep. So I don't know if they finalized their schedule. I know they were considering moving their schedule, but I haven't heard from them in probably a day or so. Have you guys heard? I don't know. No. I know our team spoke to them on Monday or Tuesday morning, but don't know if that schedule has been changed or finalized. But we'll make sure we get that information.
Are there any other outdoor activities that are still going on that are concerned to you?
There were other outdoor activities that were planned that, for the most part, have all been canceled, at least on Saturday. Sunday, we could be in much better shape. I think Friday night into Saturday morning, looking at Jay, is really the biggest concern. And so there'll still be some tail end, I think, as things warm up over Saturday. Saturday morning is still going to be brutally cold. There's no doubt about it. So if folks had something scheduled on Saturday, a lot of them have canceled and postponed to Sunday. And we just encourage everyone to kind of look to see what the schedule might be depending on the event in mind.
In terms of home heating, do people need to do anything differently to prepare their homes for this?
Fill up the tank. I think that's the biggest thing. Make sure whatever you can do to fill up the tank. I mean, we always encourage folks, whether it's getting on a schedule and all of that, but if you're not on a schedule, if your tank isn't full, go down to the basement, check to make sure something's there, contact your providers. And again, there's still some time in the next 48 hours, I think, to get that tank filled, and hopefully most folks have done that or are at least preparing to do that. Your propane, whatever it might be. Deliveries are available. We do have fuel and supplies, but folks need to make sure that they're calling in those deliveries to make sure they're ready. The one bit of good news here is that hopefully this will be a short-term event. This is a 36 to 48-hour event. It doesn't look to be a week-long cold snap. It does warm up, I think, back to quote-unquote normal temperatures by Sunday and Monday, is my understanding, with winds dying down as well. So hopefully it'll be a short-term event, but it is going to be so cold that even that 10 or 20 minutes of exposure could be life-threatening. Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Just remind everyone to check 211 or be able to call 211 if they have any questions or concerns. Check our websites and contact your local emergency officials to see what other additional resources may be available in your community. And we'll get through it. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you guys so much. Thanks. That was great.